Hello, cosmic beings out there. I'm Mannah, a therapeutic astrologer and interviewer. I'm passionate about learning and sharing insights on how to live a better life. I hope you'll stick around as I infiltrate the minds of thought leaders, authors, and healers from around the globe. Wherever you find yourself right now, dear listener, I want you to remember that you have a place to call whole. Now, please enjoy this
All right,
episode.
everyone, let's tap into the shaman's mind. Huna Wisdom to Change Your Life. This is the title of our guest today's book. And he also wrote to me earlier today, enjoy and relax this interview. And I really needed to hear those words. Welcome, warm welcome, Jonathan Hammond.
Aloha! It's really great to be here. I'm really happy to meet you and to dive into some hopefully some wonderful wisdom and healing.
Yeah, I already feel a little healed from your email there telling me to relax and enjoy. I had that with me all day. You know, it should be normal, but it's just nice to be reminded anyway. So, but you're a Maui based teacher, energy healer, shamanic practitioner, and spiritual counselor. And I've really enjoyed your book, The Shaman's Mind. I listened to it on audio, and you are doing the narrating, so it's really cool. And I have to hear it again. It's really rich. I feel it's accessible, but it's really rich in points in wisdom. So could you share with people? I'd like to ask you about this. That in Huna, there's no absolute truth. Can you say something about that?
Well, there's no the only absolute truth is that everything is. Other than that, it's all there's nothing new under the sun. It's all something that someone made up. If you just think about the idea that we undervalue the power of our minds, because our minds can literally choose to enter into different realities, where in different realities, different rules, different experiences can happen. So the shaman's mind is a where we enter into an animistic reality. Animism means that everything is alive, everything is sentient, everything is communicatable with, everything is sacred, everything is of great spirit. Everything, inanimate objects, everything in nature, everything has personhood. And when we start seeing the world and entering into that frame of reference, that is a reality that is different than our Western materialist one. And in that reality, supernatural things are much more ordinary, because the super of supernatural is just an extension of the natural in that reality. So when I say that there's no absolute truth, it's about what truth are you listening to. You know, it's kind of like if you take a walk in the forest and you have a belief that if you walk through the forest with a question that's on your heart, and that forest will somehow symbolically or somehow message you with the answer, you take a walk in the forest, under that reality, the forest will start talking. If you don't, it's just a walk in the forest. So there is no absolute truth, because it's based on what we are, how we are framing the world. We really undervalue and underutilize the power of our imagination and the power of choice. You know, in the Hawaiian tradition, choice is considered a magical power.
Okay.
Shamans would call that a magical power, because you can choose to enter into a reality where different experiences, different things are possible. Does that help?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So choice is magical. You said
Choice
that.
is magic. That's
Yeah.
right.
And we can choose our reality in one sense. I mean, you also talk about how you have people and clients with recurring patterns. And when you mentioned those in your book, I was like, yeah, I recognize those. Like, there are certain almost universal places where we tend to get stuck, depending on, I guess, what trauma we carry forth. And so parts of us, and I'm really curious actually to hear about this because I do a lot of internal family systems thinking anyway, that philosophy, and that's so coherent with what you're talking about. And like in their philosophy, they also explain how it's really inspired also by shamanistic elements anyway. So parts of us do not really realize that they're creating this reality, right? Otherwise, we would not be stuck in the same patterns. For example, I don't have enough money for that situation.
Yeah. Well, the I don't know if the crux of my book, but one of the main themes in my book is this practice, a Hawaiian practice called Ho'oponopono. And Ho'oponopono was originally a very family systems kind of practice. It was about bringing the family together when there's a problem and understanding it and excavating it and seeing it and asking forgiveness about it and being grateful for the opportunity of the issue, of the issue, because it brings us together, and any problem that we have, if we organize it as a light bulb, as a sense of, this is waking me up to something I didn't know, this is lighting my way in a certain direction. We don't really ever need to make mistakes or have problems. They're just directional energies. And then Ho'oponopono, that family practice became an individual practice over time, which is how I teach it. And it's essentially about that there is, there's an inner child, there's our unconscious body mind, the part of us that acts kind of like a computer, meaning that it memorizes certain patterns, and particularly when we're younger, children are really open, like almost to like a hypnotic suggestion. They're taking in information so much from the outside world and learning about who they are and what the world is based on what they're experiencing. They're memorizing patterns. So we all memorize green light means go. And green light does indeed mean go. We see that in the outside world. But we may also have memorized that the world is dangerous because of what we've experienced, that I have a rapport or even an interest in danger because I'm used to it, that money is something that is fraught and fearful, that we don't look right, that we need to be perfect, that there's something wrong with our sexuality, et cetera, et cetera. So this unconscious body mind holds great wisdom, but it also holds mistakes, learned memorized patterns that are antithetical to growth and to our own growth and evolution. And everything, a plant has an unconscious body mind as well, but a plant or an animal, they don't have learned memory that is antithetical to their growth. Only humans have that. And that's why we look to nature, because nature is just spontaneously and unapologetically its authentic self always. And we often have to be on the healing path to find out who that is, because we've been taught and learned something different than that. And so that's a lot of going back to the source and really going. And so when you see a recurring pattern, I always attract the bad boy. That's about, I'm still working out a relationship or dynamics, being in a relationship with someone who is not nice to me, and I'm still waiting for that person who won't be nice to be nice to me so I can have that resolution, as opposed to, if he's not nice to you, you run. But the learned memory pattern is, I'm supposed to be in that dynamic, I'm supposed to continue. And so that's the work. It's really about that there's this thing inside us that has can hold a case of mistaken identity about certain things.
And then we misinterpret reality in a way, and make maybe less magical choices. Could we put it like that?
And make less magical choices. Right. That's right.
It's interesting. Sarah?
No, I was just going to say that, that inner child left alone, to become itself, and being taught and guided toward love and toward its own love of self is really magical. You know, if you've had any kind of mystical experiences or ecstatic experiences, or anytime you're doing healing work, that's the magical inner child left alone to do its thing. That's who's doing the work. It's not the adult. It's the part of us that believes, you know, before it was taken away, before it was taken away from a reality of its own magic. That's why children have imaginary friends, and shamanism is all about imaginary friends, the spirit guides playing with drums and rattles. It's very childlike, and that's because that's the place where we access magic.
Wonderful. It's such a good way to, I guess, reframe, or to just look at it from a different perspective in terms of the inner child. And because you do talk about the layers of the conscious and the subconscious, and you have this term Q.
Yeah, that's the Hawaiian word for that's one of the from one Hawaiian tradition, the word for the unconscious body mind, which I liken to the child. But the easiest way to understand it is it's the repository of memorized patterns.
Yeah.
That about self and world. That if they're good and they're working for you, that's great. But when they're not, that's the healing work. And the thing about Ku, or those memorized patterns, is that whatever that part of us has memorized about itself or life will manifest in the outside world, as within, so without. And so that's why that part of us is so important. Freud would say that the unconscious is this sort of like libidinous, rageful thing that we're supposed to temper, that we're supposed to in some way subdue. But the indigenous version of, and it's really the same in all the indigenous cultures that deal with the unconscious, but the indigenous version of it is really about that. No, this is our ally. This is and if we can get it to memorize a pattern that is helpful to us, it will manifest in the outside world. It's the essence of magic. So, for instance, I wasn't always a spiritual teacher. I had an idea that I should be one, but I wasn't one. But I had an idea that was the right thing to do. But I did not have a memorized pattern of spiritual teacher. So what did I do? I took my classes and I worked with my mentors and I apprenticed with the shamans, and I, you know, and then eventually taught spiritual classes in church basements to the two old ladies, you know, and then over time I became the memorized pattern of spiritual teacher took hold. And when it took hold, so that spiritual teacher, Jonathan as spiritual teacher, is as ingrained in there as green light means go. It is that, you know, and because of that, the outside world now reflects back Jonathan as spiritual teacher, just as the outside world reflects back green light means go. So there's a lot that we can do about imagining a reality, memorizing a pattern of an imagined reality, and giving it and tending to it and giving it legitimacy and working with people who say yes and all of that. And then eventually, once that holds, it manifests in the outside world. That's the essence of magic.
Okay, I think it's a powerful example coming from, it's a true example, right? It's coming from you. Wow. And you say that's basically how it works, that we imprint something that we didn't know before. You didn't have any role model to do what you're doing now. Is that how it is?
Oh, I do. Oh, I did. But let me say one more thing about that. Talk about role models. The problem is that we bail because we don't hold the memorized pattern. We bail out of the problem. And I don't believe that. I'm not a spiritual teacher.
Yeah.
You know, and we bail out of the process. You know, and the job of the utilized conscious mind is to continue to guide our focus and attention toward that thing that we want to memorize. And that's why it's a process. But when we bail because we can't believe it, or we let our doubt or our fear of becoming spiritual teacher, what if I'm not any good? What if no one likes me? What if what if I'm phony? Whatever. That's where we bail from the process. You know, so that's really important, that an imagined memorized pattern needs the legitimacy of time and process and refocus and attention and the battling of the doubt and all of that. You know, it's a discipline. The magic is a discipline. Magic is a discipline.
Magic is discipline.
Yeah. And in terms of my mentors, no, I've had one in particular, but I've had lots of mentors. That's really, really, really important. And I still, 26 years with the same therapist who's more not even anymore. He's more supervisor and mentor and all of that. But yeah, so no, that's really important that we show up, up for. Yeah.
So that's different. You can have that role model. I'm sure that's gonna help that imprint that you're talking about to get that, but it's a little separate from what you were saying before, right?
Yeah, and it's also about you so to use the spiritual teacher example, so you look at someone who is that, and you read about them, and you wonder and you imagine, what do they put in their mouth? How do they treat employees? How do they how do they look at the world? And you do that enough, and then your version of their genius emerges.
Oh man, this is good. I'm trying to do that with Oprah,
Sure. Absolutely.
Because I really have this passion for interviewing, and yeah, I'm not low on voices saying you can't do that. There's so many other who's greater than you. So but this is why I found your work to be so important, because of that resistance inside of me, because of that that's going against this, because another part of me really knows that what you're talking about, and it's so important. I mean, I don't know if there's anyone else out there who feels that it kind of keep forgetting it, because it seems magical sometimes.
I mean, resistance is like it's just it comes with the territory. It's the other side of the coin of healing or growth. Yeah. And if you think of like if we've had any trauma, and that's most of us, we maybe didn't have the worst trauma, but we've all had a feeling in the past of life blindsiding us. That's what trauma is. And so because we've had that experience, the idea of destabilizing ourselves into something new, into the unknown, being open-hearted about something that we have not yet experienced, feels very counterintuitive. And so we have this mechanism in the psyche, and now this is more Western psychology, but we have a mechanism in the psyche that doubles down to make sure that we don't do that because of what we've experienced before. It's counterintuitive to go towards something new and unknown when we've had that experience in the past. And so that's why the resistance and even the inner criticism and the doubt and the fear come up to protect us. But what we have to understand is that part of us is very primitive and very young, and it's trying to protect us so that we don't get hurt again. But what we have to understand is that we're not that. We are now resourced adults who are wanting to grow in certain ways because we know that we're supposed to, and we know how to take care of ourselves.
Yeah, and in the shaman's mind, we exist magically, right? It's when I listen to that book, it's such a wonderful philosophy. Let me just see here. I wrote down the hidden gifts of the soul, and to befriend your urges, a shifting perception, open to the interdimensional. You have so many great phrases there. So it's because you're referencing a little bit to Western psychology, and I think that's a positive thing to be open to different sources. But then,
but magic, the art of conscious manifestation. So what's the precursor to that? Desire. When you think of the indigenous cultures that trafficked in magic, that had their medicine people, they were they didn't know where the next meal was coming from, and the weather really could kill them. So there was a sense of that I have to be in conversation with my environment. I had to be in conversation with the land, and I had to be in conversation with the spirits of the land, because I'm relying on the land in a different way. So my whole and I want to live, and I want to eat, and I want to thrive, and all of that. So the self-esteem of wanting, of desire, is the precursor to magic. Everything in nature is wildly self-interested. and at the same time, gives a gift to the all, just by virtue of being itself. The tree wants what it wants to be the tree, but the tree is we're breathing the tree right now. It gives a gift as well. So the idea that and that's why indigenous mind is so helpful, because it says, yes, I have a self-interest, and I also am collectively a self-awareness, but I'm collectively aware as well, and we're co-evolving together. And everything outside of me is co-evolving with me, because there's only one organism, which is Gaia, which is always moving collectively toward its own growth and its own growth and evolution. And we are in an individual cell, a part of that. And so, and that means that everything in the outside world is working with us based on our desire. The tricky thing is to know, is it an authentic desire? You know, I can desire a car, but if that car isn't part of my soul's purpose, the spirits aren't going to help with the car, you know. And it might be, I might need to really feel that in my development. I'm supposed to have that car, and that tells me something about myself and all that. So there's no rules to it. But desire, wanting for yourself, everything in nature is very self-esteemed. And that is the precursor to manifesting on the self's behalf.
Okay, so that's the befriend your urges. That little phrase is actually going with desire.
We have to want. We wanting and yearning is not. There's nothing wrong with that. It's not egotistical. It's not selfish. It's not. And you know the difference between. You know, I want something that is about status. I want something that is about I can't have enough because I'm so traumatized that I, need, I'm talking about the yearning to grow, the yearning toward that which is life affirming for me. And identifying that is really, really, really important, because then it's kind of like there's a Wiccan teaching that goes like this: if you work on behalf of self, you will find that self everywhere.
Oh, because we're so interconnected. And what you were saying before, how indigenous culture, it's because that you relied on the land before, but I'm thinking like we do now as well, right? Don't we? We also rely on for there not to be a catastrophe here again. What we are like fearing with the climate, and so you actually published this book in 2020.
Yeah.
Was there any connection there to what was going on in the world?
Oh yeah, I mean it's more so now. It's more so now. I mean, I talk about in 2020 what the Iroquois called the Wetiko virus, and the Wetiko virus is what indigenous cultures identified in the white colonizers as a kind of virus of the mind, born of separation from nature. And it's a mind virus, a mind parasite that fosters greed and sociopathy and narcissism and dehumanization and dominion over nature. And what the Native Americans saw was that so many of the Westerners were really infected with this thing, and we see it, we see it so clearly now. And the seed of everything that's wrong is our separation from nature. And I don't mean just go outside and enjoy it. That sure, do that. But I'm talking about the idea of I have dominion, that the humans are the most important, the humans are the top of the food chain, and that we have dominion over the earth. And that dominion over the earth, that led to dominion over each other, dominion over our feelings, dominion over our nature, dominion over our sexual organs. And that was all because of that separation from nature, as was religiously decreed in Genesis chapter 1.
I was just thinking about it. I was thinking this is a biblical principle, actually. Yeah.
Right, that's right. And it is foundationally untrue. And so and in animistic mind, indigenous mind, shamanic mind, the human is in relationship, in dynamic, lived, equitable relationship with the natural world. That is very much a principle. That's why you hear grandfather fire, sister mountain, brother bear, because they are kin. Even in the Hawaiian tradition, a lot of animals are considered ancestors of the families. And so there was an ethic in Hawaii, Malamaka Aina, which means to care for or love the land as you would a sibling or a parent. So it is not about the backgrounding of nature as the theater for the human drama.
Mm.
It is about that we are in a lived relationship with it.
Mm.
And because we've taken ourselves out of that, and also just to say that, you know, everything in nature is fueled by desire. And we've tempered our desire, the precursor to magic, as we talked about earlier. And so that's our work to do to get back to that, because we're at war between a human culture infested with Tico virus, sick, money as the most important factor over humanity, over empathy, over care, over everything, you know, and the natural world, which does not exemplify what the human culture has indoctrinated as legitimate. It's very sick with the human culture, and now it's being exposed in all its grotesquerie, you know. So we're really able to see it, and we're really able to if we're supposed to unplug from it or run from it or have a mass exodus from it, now we know what we're running from. That's what's going on in the world right now.
Yeah, it's really been being shown on a big scale there. Okay, yeah. So that's why I also feel like, okay, it's so important. It's so important, right? To remember this way of relating to nature. I'm not completely sure how it would look. Like you say, nature is not just in the background. Can you describe it a little bit more? How is it? I mean, you must live this way where you are, right? You must live in complete contact with nature.
I mean, I try as much as I can. I mean, I'm still westernized. I still have electricity. I'm on the internet, you know, all those sort of things. But there is a sense in my shirt, the walls of the room. These are all made of earth, and earth has an intelligence. Earth is not. It's not a dead rock. The earth from the Big Bang on has been evolving. You know, you go the first three billion years of the earth. It was not a cute place to live. It was not, you know, this was a place of fire and sulfur and uninhabitable. And it has evolved to be conducive to life, which means that the earth, just like us, has been evolving. And in evolving, it is becoming aware of itself, just as we are.
Oh, okay.
And so that's all. And so when I talk about that, the earth is in my clothes and the earth is in my, and I'm made of earth. Every element in my body is. I was born of earth. I'm an earth being. And so that means that intelligence that is constantly moving towards growth, evolution, and life. That intelligence is infused in me. It's infused in my environment. It's infused in the room that I'm in. We're breathing the plants. You know, this is actually true that there's this kind of green algae that grows in these huge patches on the ocean, and that algae is largely fertilized by dolphin excrement, which means that every breath that it supplies 50% of the world's oxygen. This algae on the ocean, which means that 50% of the every other breath that we breathe is born of dolphin poop. We're that connected.
Okay.
You know? You know, and it's the recognition of that. It's the recognition that we are that we are that we're working together in an interdependent world. What's so scary about the U.S. right now is that they have this insane, stupid idea that isolationism is appropriate, and the healthiest ecosystem is diverse. That is the nature of what makes a healthy ecosystem. It's diversity. It's interdependence. Even the idea of Darwin's survival of the fittest, that is largely been debunked. And what's the fittest in nature is that which is most adaptive and cooperative with everything else.
Yeah.
So something that's very against natural law. You do a monocrop, the land dies. You know, and so that's something that we all and that's what's missing in policy, is that we're not looking at how nature works. We live on Earth. I don't know where we're going, and I don't even understand, but in the spiritual community, about leaving here and transcending it in some post-apocalyptic consciousness, soup. I don't understand all that. We're here, and it's important that we don't leave, and it's important that we reconnect our love with it, not just as conservationists, but as a sense of I am of it. Yeah. I was born of it, and it gives me everything. She gives me everything. The earth gives a Gaia. She gives me everything. The only thing she asks is that I take care of her and I take care of each other. We can't even do that.
Oh, it's so interesting, all of what you're saying. I should take notes, really. But that's too late now. I have to just re-listen to it. It's really good. You're saying so many things in there. And the earth being conscious of itself. I really like that. Yeah. And when you talk about survival of the fittest and how our priorities have just, in my words, just become superficial, that's so interesting, with neurobiology also confirming that it's really not just about surviving a life. It's also that in order to really live, you need to be mirrored. You need to be, someone other than you needs to be engaged in your emotions in order for you to be a real person. Like we have that imprint of each other inside of us, right? And we need that interconnection. And you were talking about diversity, and then you said in the US right now there's isolation. But did you say being isolated?
Yeah. I mean, they're cutting out, those people. Not, but they're trying to cut us off from the world, and thinking that they can make it, and it's just not. It's not going to work. It's not going to work because we live in a unitive consciousness. We live, whether or not we believe that or not. Separation is a helpful illusion, but it is an illusion. There is only one thing happening. And there's no way, as we are born of Earth, there's no way that we are self-aware and that we are growing our consciousness, and the thing that we're born out of isn't.
Right. Yeah, I see. Yeah. It's just I like the idea. I need to take that in. And okay, so in the last part here of our interview, I want to do two things at least, and that is talk a little bit astrology with you, and also hear you about our intrinsic power. So maybe let's go there first, because when we're talking about this, it's easy to come to a place where, like you say, we don't know what's going to happen. So are we just powerless or what? But this is another message in your book, is that we actually have a lot of power. And I think this is also from your book, that it's time to change our mind now. So yeah, using that Huna Wisdom to change our life, that's part of your subtitle. So we have the power, or we don't have the power in this situation? What is it?
One of the principles in Huna is it's a word called Mannah. Hello. Hello, but
Hello.
it's Mannah, and the translation is the esoteric translation is all power comes from within. All power comes from within, and generally speaking, what that means is that that the power to and again, this is idealistic because freedom is mitigated in some places. Some people don't have the freedom to co-create their lives and all of that. So, but assuming you do, and if you do, for goodness sake, take responsibility for it, you know. But the idea being that that the power to create our lives lives within us. The human culture versus nature thing. Human culture is about you don't have the power. Human culture is about we have the power, and you give your soul and your spirit for us, and you send your energy and your money up to us, and it's indoctrinated. That's what the original sin, all of that stuff. It's all about that it doesn't come out of you, and
Yeah.
it absolutely does. It absolutely does, and the journey to not giving a shit what anyone thinks, the journey to really, really feeling that, and that no one can tell me my truth more than I know. I already know what it is. That is the journey of that is the penultimate goal. That that no one can override or tell me what is true for me. You can provide me feedback that helps me deepen what my felt sense of what my truth is. Then I want you in my life. But you cannot tell me what my truth is more than I already know. And when I am giving away my essence to assimilate to you and to your rules and to your expectations and to your dogma, that is where we give our power away. But so all power comes from within. That's the nature of that principle. So you can think of it this way: there's power over, which leads to fear and retaliation. Power over. There's power against, which leads to resistance and tension. And then there's the power to empower, because that means that I can give it away because I know I had it in the first place.
I remember that part of the book that touched me when you said something like, this is just from my memory, but like the shamans, real shamans, they don't care what other people think. They just, like, you don't care about that anymore.
It is so liberating. It is so liberating, and it's not misanthropic. It's not about It's not about I don't like I don't like people. I reject it. It's just about that I have, and we all do, an individual, unique essence.
Yeah.
That needs expression, and that needs what it needs to evolve itself. And when I when I dim that, when I betray that, nothing in nature betrays that. The dandelion is going to be the dandelion. The shark is going to be the shark. It only wants to be itself. It only knows to be itself, and it doesn't yearn to become something other than itself. And it's only us. It's only us and our acculturation, which is ultimately about someone else having the power and sending the money up. It really is. It's
like the business model of a church. It comes to mind what you're talking about. Oh, it's so good. I really, really want to take this in and exist more magically. You say we already are, so it's just becoming aware of it. See, you were mentioning the word destabilize before in another context, but I just thought about it because I don't know what's going on exactly in your life, but is it okay to speak about your astrology?
Sure.
Okay, I want to have consent before I just go there.
Of course.
Okay. Because right now you have the nodes, we all collectively have the nodes in 27 degrees of Virgo and Pisces, and they're going to be stationary there for a little while until they have because there are eclipses in those degrees. but you were born with Pluto in 27 degrees of Virgo. And that means that, well, it's there now where the notes are, and also Neptune have been on it since May of 23, and actually not leaving until last year of March, something like that. So there's a process. I don't know if it could potentially be destabilizing, but that's in a good sense. I think, yeah, I remember it now. You were talking about it like we are afraid to go there, right? Because it's not familiar to us. So in that sense, it reminded me of this part of you where, yeah, this is the shamanistic part. This is the whole multidimensional what Pluto is.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. It resonates personally. I think that there are times when there's this felt sense. And the felt sense that's nature. That's the earth in us. The felt sense. Because our ego usually doesn't like it if it's taking us somewhere that's unknown.
Yeah.
But felt sense of I need to change. I need to change. I need to I need to judge something in my life. I need to consciously destabilize. For me personally, it's been more. I have a very robust private practice, and and that's great. I'm certainly a spiritual teacher and have venues where I teach, but I feel like I'm having to do something that I don't like right now, which is kind of like marketing, social media, that kind of stuff, because I just feel like at this time I need to be out there more as teacher, and to be honest, if what I'm comfortable with is kind of neighborhood witch with an internet connection. That's what that's really like how I think about that's how I think of myself. But I think that I'm supposed to be a little bit more out there, and I don't really mean that. And when I say it's like a should thing, it's not something that I particularly want to. I just feel like I'm supposed to. And so there is a change happening right now, and I think overall, though, I'm probably talking too much about me, but I think overall that there is a sense that thing, that behemoth of a sick culture, has exposed itself for what it actually is, and that there is a mass exodus toward what? Toward a path, people choosing a path of service. And I don't mean selfless service. I mean where we take our ingenuity and our creativity and our hearts and our love and our special sauce and our gifts, and we put it towards those people, places, and things that also want freedom, that also want more life, that also want to live in a world where we care about each other. And that way is been prophesied that we would go there. All the indigenous prophecies talk about this time on the planet being very dark, but there would be these light workers who would usher in this new consciousness, and that's very much happening. Even Carl Jung talked about two Decembers ago, we would begin the age of Aquarius. He wrote that in 1952. That in the age of Aquarius would be a 2,000-year period towards unity, and we are just in the beginning of it. That's why we're so polarized, and that's why the new way, or the path of service, which is the path of the spirits, because the spirits are only about service. And so we're choosing path of service. We're choosing that's why it's so godless over there, so devoid of spirit, and so we're going there. So I think there is a destabilizing, because there's an exodus away from something that we now know is dying, and we now know is very toxic and very sick, and it has exposed itself for what it actually is.
It makes a lot of sense in the symbolism, and I'm really appreciating that you interrupted me a little bit. I felt like, yes, I wanted to be interrupted. It was really good. I really feel like
good. Okay, sorry.
I feel you're really tapping into this archetype without I even had to say a lot about it. Like, you're tapping right in there, talking about service. That's a Virgo thing. And you got a lot of Virgo, right? And you got it in the 12th house of public service, what we don't own. It's the area of our life where we don't own it, but we give it forth. So your service is definitely supposed to be very public. Like when you're speaking about, want to go further with my spiritual teachings. Well, absolutely. And you're also bringing up a lot of Pluto words there with the toxic stuff coming up. And so it's interesting to see what role you're going to have in all of this, right? And how you're Yeah. How you're
And you
gonna.
too. And you too.
Me too, of course.
You
Of
too.
course.
And everyone listening, it really, like if you're tuned into this, if you're tuned in, this is about, like, you got to know something about yourself. You got to know something about yourself. You may not feel that you're a light worker. You may not be professionally a light worker, but if you are someone who is attuned to the idea that I have this weird feeling that I'm supposed to help. I'm supposed to be a part of the solution.
Yeah.
I want to get away from the things that feel so toxic and ill, and that I feel like I'm supposed to do something, or I resonate with someone who talks about it. That's who you are. There, and all the prophecies talk about that there would be this army of light workers, and they weren't just talking about people with a big mouth like me and you. They were talking about all of these people who would incarnate at this time to usher in the new way.
And
Even
exact time?
it's that time. Yeah, yeah. The Mayan count, the Mayan 2012. You've heard that. So
Yeah.
the easiest way to understand that is that was that in 2012 there was the end of a 26,000 year period that would result in what the Mayans called two Earths. Now, that obviously didn't mean two distinct planets, but two consciousnesses on Earth that would become so separate that eventually they wouldn't even be able to see each other. Carl Jung talked about in a book he wrote in 1952 called Ion. He said December, I think, 2022 was the beginning of the age of Aquarius. So we are ending the Piscean age, an age based on polarity, good, bad, black, white, the 2,000 years of Jesus, good, bad, black, white, Democrat, Republican, us, them, me, you. And that the age of Aquarius, which would begin 2 Decembers ago, would be a 2,000 year period away from polarity and toward unity. And we are right in the dark time when the Tower card in the tarot comes up, or the Death card. It's not about physical death necessarily. So with death is also implied rebirth. But yes, we are right in that time. And the Hopi, the Cherokee, the Kali Yuga, the Quechua, all the indigenous cultures talked about this time about sort of 1950 to where we are now, the Great Acceleration, they call it, this time when everything starts speeding up, that this would be a time that would be fraught, but would also be a time when the light workers would come and do their thing. And it's very interesting that during that time, the spirituality section at Barnes & Noble is available to all of us. All of this esoteric wisdom for the first time in history available for mass consumption. The spirits know what they're doing.
And I also feel like that we're speaking about trauma in the way that we do, right?
That's right.
Because that's also, if we're thinking about ourselves as in having been lived many lives, and now we're here to, like you're talking about, in the dark age, but then clearing the darkness. Like there's a purpose to that. We're actually talking a lot about trauma and bringing it up in the
trauma. That's right. We're talking about that because we need to understand what it is. I think neurodivergence is a lot of people who go, I don't fit in that old paradigm. I don't think that way. My brain doesn't work that way. That's by evolutionary design. Non-binary, that's about I don't fit in that paradigm. I don't think in that way. I don't think of myself as just as this or that. There are all these things that all these beings who've incarnated at this time that don't fit with the old thing, which is the reason why they're trying to be suppressed, and because they have the answers. The answer's behind me. The answer's younger than me. I can just help people who actually will fix it know that they're supposed to fix it. But it's not me. But they're already here. They're already here. The new leadership, the new way forward. They're already here, and they're just not in power. But they're here now.
Not in power yet?
They're not in power yet.
Okay.
They're not in power yet. But they need to know what they are. And they need to get out from under the oppression that makes them not see what they are. And just for everyone listening, just you got to know you're that. You got to own the fact that You're just an atom in a huge organism, but you are an atom, and you got to clean up your atom. You got to do your part to make that atom as healthy and well and evolutionarily minded and growthful as it can be, so that it contributes to the organism. You just have to do that. You can do that by not leaving your house. You're still doing your part if you're doing that, you know.
Jonathan Hammond, you need to get going because you have clients back to back today. That's how it is. I'm sure you do a lot of work, and I see that in your chart, and just from because your message have been spread widely for sure already. So I'm gonna follow along whatever you do, and thank you so much for bringing us all of these points and reminding us, I feel, of who we truly are. Right.
Love it. Take care of yourself. Take care of each other, and an honor to be with a beautiful light being. Thanks.
Thank you.
Aloha.